What on earth is that? It's a Journey into Comics Network production!
Tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound of it.
Brought to you by the power of the Journey into Comics Network. This is the Journey into Comics podcast, the show that's 100% dedicated to everything nerd. With your hosts, the Podfather, Nate Phillips, the Podmaster, Brandon Stone, and the Journey into Comics Network stepdad, Tyler McLaughlin.
Time to make the chimichangas.
30 seconds.
Hey,
Excellent!
Finally.
What did you do?
And here we go.
Can somebody tell me what kind of a world we live in where a man dressed up as a bat gets all of my press? This town needs an enema.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Journey into Comics. It's Journey into Comics 301. As always, I'm your host, Nate. Today, joining me, welcome back once again, co-founder of the Journey into Comics Network. You know and love them whenever the hell they release episodes over there on the Game Addicts podcast, as well as the OGs every other Wednesday right here on the Journey into Comics Network. Welcome back once again to the show, the man, the myth, the legend, the Podmaster, Brando. How you doing, dude?
It's going, I'm doing pretty good. It's going all right over here in my neck of the woods. We release episodes whenever the hell I freaking feel like it now over on Game Addicts. It's just whenever the news is right, whenever I have a good topic. I have discovered that if I try to keep it to it every single week, I don't always have stuff to talk about. And I'm not going to do a show if I'm going to try and like BS my way through one just to have like, I've got 2 topics this week and I got nothing else. I don't want to do a half-hour show. I want to do a nice rounded out show. And so I've just decided, you know what? When I'm good to go, I'm good to go. And today we are good to go here on JIC. We are sans one of the other co-hosts, Tyler McLaughlin, the stepdad of the Journey to Comics Network. He will be out for a little while. Ironically, I come back and we're going to have 3 hosts. And then for like a month, it's just going to be you and me rocking it like the OGs.
I love it. I think it's a really fun, special dynamic, especially being here right after the momentous 300th episode of the show, longest episode we've ever done.
Yeah.
Maybe the biggest project you've tackled for the network, at least as far as editing is concerned, and then all the work you did for the intro, which I don't know if we even touched the intro on 300, like talked about the new amazing intro, but it's incredible in audio form. And I do encourage our audio listeners to go to YouTube and watch our live show now that we do that's, streamed or whatever, or however you say it. It's visually, you can see us or whatever. It's a video cast. It's because the intro in video form is absolutely incredible. Like, Brandon, seriously, just to blow you for a second on the podcast, like, you put so much work into it, dude. I wanted 300 to be special. I wanted to have as many of our friends as we could, to take kind of the concept of 50, level it up to where we are now with what we can do in the world we live in. It was just like, hey, I might change the intro, and it wasn't really a super huge thought. And then you immediately like became producer, and it was the role we've always kind of fallen into with each other.
Kind of, yeah. Ironically, even all the way going back to the old days of just like whenever we had a brainstorming idea about something, we both have a good idea of like putting stuff together, whether that be images, logos, some intro ideas or whatever. But I really enjoy working on that stuff. I really do. And I'll try to conceptualize some cool ideas. Not all the times does it work out. We're working on something for something coming up, and it just does not work. It's funny, but it does not work.
It does not work.
It doesn't work. But no, this intro worked a lot. It worked so well because, we've we used the old guitar riff for a song Manipulator from back in the Draxus days, back when you and me rocked in a band. And it was cool because it was like a little nod to what we did before. And it just kind of kept it from episode 7 into different iterations through different clips in the intro to the outro of it. There's been different voices for announcing. We've had different hosts come. It's gone through a metamorphosis, and I actually threw that in the intro to the intro to make that 5-hour podcast even longer. I actually did that as a cool little nod to that intro and kind of a salute to you and fond farewell. But I almost wanted to put a thing in the middle. It's like welcome to the future of GIC, or welcome to GIC Beyond, because it's almost like Batman Beyond or something like that with that intro, because it really is very different. It's that dark. What's the style of music that is? It's like
synthwave.
Yeah, dark synthwave. I've been really vibing on that myself. Of course, I'm a big Mass Effect fan. I'm a big Blade Runner fan, and so you just have that kind of vibe in those.
Oh yeah.
In those games and those movies. So I'm like, when we were talking about doing a new intro, let's do something completely different, and I didn't even know if it would work. Well, we found something that we liked, that we both liked. It was, hey, this is cool. And I'm like, let me see if I can put something to it. We did. We put it together. I made the entire intro. I presented it to you, presented it to Tyler. Said, here you go. It's awesome. It's going to help make 300 even better. And then you invited me back on the show on a full-time basis, and I had to edit the intro again to put myself on there.
Sorry, I wasn't long-term planning. It really, it all kind of, it coalesced in a moment of time. I'll tell you, I was back in the studio and we were texting about the intro or finalizing that stuff. And I looked at V and I was like, what am I doing? Like, Brandon is back podcasting in a more full-time basis. And I don't mean full-time as in like it's all you do, but like you're doing it more often than you had been.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems you're enjoying yourself. And it seems that when me, you, and Tyler are on, we just are an unstoppable force. So it's like, why not? And she goes, yeah, you should just ask him. Okay. Well, so then, it happened how it happened, man. It was, it's just, to me, it's very strange. And I said it on the other podcast, how I feel 2016 was the decimation of all life as we know it. And I don't mean from a political, geopolitical aspect. I just, for some reason, I feel like January of 2016, David Bowie dies.
Yeah.
And everything went off the rails. And my life has been drastically different since 2016. And I went through some pretty low downs. And I've also seen and risen to some pretty cool ups, Yeah. And I felt like going into 2020, there were things that weren't balanced in life, to just go like further behind my mental and whatnot. And it was like I had unfinished business with you. We were trying to get things together. And then finally stuff started clicking, at the end of last year and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I have, unfinished business with other friends and things like that. We had unfinished business with Rob, our former bass player.
Yeah.
Who, for those of you who are listening to the podcast, you're going to get a little bit of insight. Spoiler alert: he's our bass player again. He's
awesome.
Back full time, but
that's great,
not
man.
as Walk Among Us.
Oh,
I mean, and not to say that he's not in Walk Among Us, because we don't know what the status of that band is right now. But we're like 18 songs deep into an album at this point.
That's awesome, dude.
So I can't wait for everybody to hear the first track that we're probably going to be sharing at some point, because it's a real doozy of a song. And but anyways, it was just like I felt like I had unfinished business. There were things that were in 2016 where things started to look good. I mean, that was like the precipice of the band coming on strong, and then like building into 2017, the network became a thing, and we went strong for 2 years there, really, really hard in the paint with content every day and whatnot. And then, like I said, things down in 18, and then 19's kind of climbing back up. And what I felt like was, to get to my point, I needed your energy in my life, because we've always had that with each other, and we've always found a way back to each other in our friendships. And it seemed the same to be said for Rob and his place. And as those things have all happened, everything has balanced in a really strange manner. Like
Sure.
this is what life is meant to be now. This is where things level, and I'm in a different headspace. It's really cool. It's really cool to reflect in that way. At least to look at the last chunk of the few years. And it's really nice too, because as you know, we have all the catalog of things we've lived through in the podcast.
Sure.
We usually talk about our shit.
Well, absolutely. And see, you know, and we kind of touched about it on 300. We don't need to rehash too much, but it's just like, you know, when I made that decision to step away, it was a pretty rough patch. You know, you could say like for our friendship, but it really wasn't. I would say that like that was a byproduct of everything else that was going on. Like, we don't live in the same town. I can't go over to your house, stand on your front yard and be like, buddy, we need to talk.
Let's chat.
Let's chat right now. And had you been, I would have done that because I was that poignant about it. In fact, like, you know, maybe things would have been different when I remember I was sitting in the back playing with the kid, and I was like, we need to talk. You know, there's big happenings here, and we need to talk. And this is in no way what I'm about to say, saying that, you know, placing blame or fault, but you were unavailable to talk. You had life. Guess what? I have life. It happens. We have kids. We have families, you know, and that moment where I needed to talk, you couldn't. Could it have never happened? Maybe. Because if we're real with each other and we're honest, even if that honesty maybe isn't what the other person wants to hear, at least it's laid bare, and we can start, like, what do we want to do? What do we do to fix this, right? Just like with any relationship, just like whether or not it's with your girlfriend, fiance, wife, whatever, partner, if you're honest with each other and you can sit down with each other and say what's wrong, say what we need to do, we can try to fix it. And at that point in time, we couldn't fix it. And so we kind of took a break, you know, and you focused on different things. I put my focus on a different thing, and it worked out tremendously because in about a year, for whatever reason, we were both 100% ready in that moment to have that conversation. And it was
smooth and
it was
pretty
smooth.
easy.
And it wasn't awkward in any way. It wasn't awkward. It was like
no. That episode of JIW was an awkward episode. That was. I mean, I'm so grateful that I have a friend in you that was able to just like put the bullshit aside and see, hey, this is kind of a thing, and he actually needs the help because there's no other person to step in. We didn't have buckles at the time, you know.
Yeah.
It was, and I had been asked, like Casey Taylor said, dude, I want you to do a thing for the Rumble here, and I didn't feel like I don't want to be an asshole and be like, no, I don't, no, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, sure, let's, you know, try to make it happen or whatever. But then I got into the point where it was like, I'm a little in over my head. What do I do? And I think it was more awkward for me because I felt like you had dissected and thought about what you wanted to say, how you wanted to say the things you needed to say about the situation. And all I was wanting to do was listen, but that was not the time or the day to be able to do it. And I thought we were going to find time, and it never
happened.
transpired.
No, that's
and
what
not
I was
by
hoping.
any fault.
No, that's I was hoping that what the conversation we had, I believe in June or July on Podcaster Fee 94 or whatever. I think it's 94. It's live on that episode. You can go listen to it in the backlog. That was us on the air, not having any pre-rehearsal, not having anything. We laid it bare. No boundaries there. No, I was hoping we would have that night, and it never really kind of happened, and I was disappointed. I was disappointed that it didn't happen, but I also didn't feel like that when we left, that we left on a bad note. I felt like we did a good job. I felt like we had fun. And it did feel like, I mean, was there a little bit of awkwardness there because we were working together, we hadn't had the conversation yet.
Yep. It was like okay, this is not what I'm saying. I don't want this to sound. I am walking a very fine tightrope when I say what I'm about to say here. So it was like a couple who was having sex after the fight, but they didn't settle the fight. They just got to the fucking.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. We just got down to business.
Down to it. You know?
Got down to business. And you know what? We rocked it. We did 2 podcasts that day. The second one, I said this before. I felt a little out of place because I didn't know a darn thing about the fellas, and like you were hitting on all the points, and so like we even made joke about like, what are you even doing here? I don't know. I'm just over here on the apron waiting for the hot tag,
Hanging out, yeah,
waiting for the hot tag, and like no, it was it's a lot of fun. I've always had a lot of fun, in any project with you, because we mesh pretty well together. We are total opposites in so many different ways, as far as our mindsets. You're a very much gung ho. Let's do this and hit record and go now. And I'm the guy that goes, well, hold on a second. We can do that, but it might be better if we think about it first and maybe try to execute something. And
this is literally, you just told the whole problem with my whole life. Is I just am like, let's do it, whoa! And I don't think first sometimes.
I'm a very reserved guy. There's not too many times that I just jump in the pool, without dipping my toe in to see if it's cold first. Because there's nothing I hate worse than jumping in a pool and all of a sudden you're like, I can't move. It was a mistake.
That's funny that you bring up a pool. I was in a pool this week, weirdly enough. It was nice. But I want to go back just a few minutes. You were talking about how any good relationship, any good thing you have in life, communication is key. We're a podcast. We're communicating with people. I think I'd be a total fool if I didn't talk briefly about something that, while is not at all nerdy, it was an awesome experience. And I want to tell you and everybody else that if you haven't yet watched this on Netflix, it's only 10 episodes for the first season. I can't tell you if the second season's good because I only finished season 1 last night with the girls, but watch the show that is called You. Y-O-U. Okay, it's a Greg Berlanti produced show, so it's kind of got a little bit of the CW vibes, right? A little bit. Not as much cheesy, shitty music, and definitely a lot more sex and stuff because it's a not CW show. The show is based on a stalker, this guy, who, he falls in love with a girl. Imagine that.
Yeah.
But he falls in love with her to the point where he starts eliminating people from her life who he realizes, while he's not wrong, they are terrible, awful, horrible, toxic people that need to be ridded from this person's life. There are different ways to go about it than Guy goes about it. So, but the tension, the suspense, the thriller aspect of the show, it gives me Dexter vibes in ways that I can't express to you with words. It's just that gut feeling when you were in a moment and Dex was inches away from LaGuerta catching him, and then something changes the whole thing and he doesn't get caught. Like those moments, big feel in this show, and it's great. It's a different, like, not what you're expecting, total departure, and you can pretty much hate on everybody because every character is awful. Like they're all scumbags in some way.
It's always good to hear that. I haven't seen it, but I've heard all about it. Me and a guy at work, we have talked about it because he was like watching it and was all into it. And so he told me a lot about it, and I was like, that's interesting. And as with me a lot with TV shows, if I've already had that conversation and I haven't seen it, and then it's like, well, like then we start talking about spoiler stuff, I typically don't turn around and watch it. Sometimes I do. But typically it's like, well, I know all about this show. It sounds cool. It sounds good.
But then you kind of want to wait a little bit though, so you don't go in knowing everything,
because I might forget by then, and like it might hit fresh, I'm like, oh yeah, crap, I forgot about that. It's in a similar way. This wasn't intentional, but with Game of Thrones, I knew that Ned died because when I started reading about when they first announced the HBO show. I read an article. I'm like, oh, what's this? What's this thing? Game of Thrones? What's this? And they were like, that's going to be really interesting what they do. They casted Michael Biehn, and is the first season just going to be a straight up with the first book because his character dies at the end. I'm like, well, there we go. We already know that, And then they're like, and not to mention the Red Wedding, and I'm like, well, that's another thing. I didn't know what it was. I just said it, but then it's like when the series came out, and it's like. Headline, Headless Ned or whatever. And it's like, well, I guess that happened. And then season 3, everywhere, Red Wedding. I'm like, it was a big thing. And then so like I knew about Ned, and I knew about John. That was the other thing is like this the book series kills so many characters, and I think still to this day the series has started and ended, and the next book of Game of Thrones hasn't come out.
It's still not gonna come out. Yeah.
And at the end of the last book, Jon Snow died. So that they were on about that. Like wow, like this book series is ruthless. It's like how's the show going to be? So like a lot of those things were up here, and I didn't watch the series until 2014. I believe fall of 2014 is the very first time I watched it. I think season 4 had to come out and had been out for a few months, and we signed a new Comcast deal where we got HBO for a year. And I'm like, I want to watch this. And she goes, I don't want to watch it. Typical, right? And then I start watching it, and she goes, what are you watching? Game of Thrones. Oh, okay.
And then you got her hooked, and then you had to watch it together.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, thankfully, thankfully, it wasn't The Walking Dead where I was already a half hour into the show and had to restart the episode. Thankfully,
oh no.
Thankfully, she was sitting there, and I was laying on the couch, and I hit play, and she was like, "What are you watching?" I said, "Game of Thrones," and she was like, "Whatever," and then was kind of paying attention to the first episode, and then a couple episodes in, she's like, "Okay, we have to watch this together now." Yeah, that happens a lot, but because it had been so long, like when the show started, I'm like, okay, so that's the Ned guy, right? I had completely forgot about John until that season when it was like, oh crap, that's right. Oh man. So I'm sitting here like biting my nails. Not really, because I don't bite my nails, but like I was on edge thinking like, oh crap, this is it. They're going to do it. And then, of course, the wife had zero idea because I didn't tell her any of those things. So it was it was even more punch in the gut. But yeah, no, I haven't really been watching a lot of television. I've been playing more games. Really, I haven't been playing anything for the last month or so. Because I was kind of waiting. I didn't want to start anything that was too deep. I have a few games I need to finish. Persona 5, but that's like a game that takes you 7 years to beat. Because it's a long, it's a long game. 100 hours easy, and like I love the game, but it's just like it's typical for me. I'm playing it, I'm loving it. Something else comes out that I want to play, I go play that, and that's what happens, especially with longer games. So I'll get back to it. But there's a certain game that came out just yesterday as we record this. So this is, of course, coming out on Monday, so it just came out Friday. The Last of Us Part 2. And this is like, really, we only have 2 big topics this week's episode to talk about. And this game has part to do with one of them. Because, did you see the reviews that this game has got?
I want to say, didn't Metacritic... okay, so the first time we talked reviews, you and I, you said Metacritic had it at a 96, which was one above the first game, which was a 95. Yeah. And it was something like 40-something odd 10-star reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like at 100s, 10s, 5 out of 5s, whatever you want to say.
However you want to call it, yeah.
Well, now it's at 95. It got bumped down one, so it's tied with the first. The user score, 3.4.
Ooh, a mid-range game. That's okay. I already see where this is going. This is the fucking Last Jedi all over again, ain't it?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. 100. You hit the nail right on the head. There are 7,331 positive review ratings, 18,128 negative reviews, and there's a crap ton of zeros. And a lot of it has to do with the narrative, about the story being bad. Notice if you're watching on video, I kind of did a quotation because I'm playing the game. I'm not at the end, and I understand this. I don't think it's bad.
So far, what you're experiencing isn't a bad experience.
No, I'm right there with her. Like saying things like a spit in the face to the original nonsensical narrative, total disregard for beloved characters. I know what he's talking about there. No,
I think people
this
are
review.
just-
This review. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
This hit. Nope. What a way to end the franchise in the first 2 hours of the game. This guy is already mad, and this is a 20 to 26 hour game. From the beginning, it was clear this game was going to be bad. For me personally, disappointment of the year. Again, 0 review. Most overrated game of this generation. The critic reviews are either fake or the reviewers are too boneless to say how generic the story is. Or how generic the gameplay. The gameplay is The Last of Us. It enhances on the original gameplay.
What did you want them to do? Reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, no. Like, basically, if you played through Uncharted 4, if you played through The Last of Us and then Uncharted 4, which is the game after The Last of Us, and you play this one, you see that there's a progression of what the style of game is here. There was literally so there's a lot of people mad. And one of the things that I saw that really irritated me yesterday is it was a review on Metacritic, and it was 5 sentences. The same sentence repeated 5 times.
Okay.
I hate gay people.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
So here's the thing. Ellie's a lesbian. She's into girls. And that's revealed in the first game. It's not overtly in your face in the main narrative of the standalone story. But it's revealed that her best friend in the DLC Left Behind, which you have to play after you beat the game, it was a girlfriend. Yeah. And guess what? That's all that they just show how they act around each other. That's it. It's not like we're telling a gay story.
Or yeah, okay. Yeah. So let's touch on that.
Yes, please, let's.
Okay. So there's tasteful and distasteful ways to tackle sexuality in the modern era. Distasteful is one of our characters is gay. Find out who tomorrow. Like
yes,
like it's some sort
making
of
it a
selling
spectacle.
point.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna just to piss off toxic fandom types again. Here we go. But Rise of Skywalker, very subtle moment, but there's a lesbian kiss in that. So fucking what?
Yeah, who cares?
Does it change the story? She loves a woman. Who the fuck cares? Are you loving that woman? No. Are you in love with that woman? Maybe that's the problem. These motherfuckers are in love with the lesbians because they're jealous or for whatever reason. I can't figure it out. Or deep-seated, we're going to find out something more interesting, which is toxic fandom comes from toxic internet, which comes from toxic masculinity, which boils down to a 4chan or an 8chan type board where there is no limitation, there is no law on what can be said. And if it's the wild, wild fucking West, I'm sorry, I know freedom of speech, I get it, I understand. But if it is the wild, wild West and people are left unchecked, things like this are going to happen where people are going to go, well, here's the deal. I don't like that game for X reason. And then somebody hears, oh, this game's getting heat on it. People don't like it. I wonder what's up. Then they find out, oh, there's a lesbian woman who's a part of the story, who's the main character. Well, now my agenda has been touched. Now
Yes.
I have an anger problem. Now I'm going to come out of the woodwork, have nothing to do, never played the game, don't know the narrative, don't know dick, and come out and say all this evil, vitriolic shit.
It gets worse.
Uh-oh.
Because there's a character in the game who is portrayed by Laura Bailey. She's a voice actress and very talented. She was in Dragon Ball. She's in a lot of games. She was in, I think she was actually in Uncharted 4 with Troy Baker, and also I think Catherine, the one puzzle game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So her character is pretty masculine. Okay.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's ever reviewed. Again, I haven't beat the game. I want that. I started it last night. I want that to be stated. I started it, and I am X of the way through. I already know some big spoiler stuff. I got spoiled personally on Twitter just by clicking on the Naughty Dog trending thing, and somebody. So I already know some stuff that's going to happen, and I'm still enjoying this game. But there's a lot of people that are, I don't know if they're upset or if they're just triggered or what is the right word, but there is a perception that this character is trans.
So
exactly, and there's people posting, "It's ma'am." You remember that GameStop video that went viral, and what we have, I've actually had someone say this to me because if this character ends up being trans, the correct wording and reaction to that is exactly what you said. Who cares? Is that what defines her?
Or does that define the game?
No.
Like, it's real world. It's supposed to be built on a real world scenario. And let me tell you something. You can hate them. You can be a shitbag to them. Trans people are real. Okay? They exist. And guess what? They can live their life just how the fuck they want. It's not bothering you. They're not coming and shitting on your lawn. Not to say that they would shit on people's lawns.
Let me just say, trans man is a man. A trans woman is a woman. It doesn't matter. It doesn't freaking matter because I was and this really bugged me. Somebody in my real life person, like somebody I know, like when I said this person could be trans, rolled their eyes. It's like, why are they doing that? It's like just to show them representation. And see, now they're going to want even more representation. It's like,
I hope I don't know this person because I kind of want to punch him in the dick.
I don't think you do.
Okay, good.
But it was just that, and I don't know if that person was just being a smart ass, but that's not really a good thing to say because, okay, let's alternate reality. Say everything exists as it does now as far as technology goes, but it's 1954 or 1959. We're going into the 60s, and they make a video game, and there's a black person in it.
Same. People be like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
A black person in a video game? So what?
You know, and that's just it. You know, we need to get past this because that still exists with black people, people of color, to touch on other ethnicities as well. But all that stuff, and that stuff is still an issue. It's crazy how this whole thing, it encapsulates issues that are going on in the real world.
Bigger picture issues.
Yes, bigger picture. Absolutely. Well, video games and also entertainment, because you mentioned Star Wars thing too. Because these people deserve to be noticed and to be legitimized as you are real. Because the same thing that was being said in the 60s of them being lesser, because things have gotten a tiny bit better. And when I mean tiny, I mean just as in black people are legitimate. They still don't get treated equally in this country. But it's like, okay, I guess you can get married to interracial couple. I guess we'll allow it. You know,
yeah.
You can vote. I guess you can go to the same schools. I guess, we lost that battle. But then they shift their focus to the LGBTQ community, and now it's like they're lesser. They're here because they're not normal. They're not us. It's that pack mentality. And
just a bunch of goddamn bullies, dude. That's what it comes down to. These people who are adults who are throwing a fit over someone's sexuality or race are inherently, whether it's their mommy's fault, their daddy's fault, their own goddamn fault, whatever, they're inherently bullies. And at the end of the day, they're trying to make it to where they're the only kind of people that shine. And I don't want that. You know what I want? I want us to get to a civilization level where our planet has planetary peace so that we can go figure out if there's other stuff out there that maybe could make everything in existence better, and instead of going, oh, well, we're just going to spend all of our money and time and effort fighting each other, which we're all the same species. That's I don't know about you, Brando, but I don't think I really have seen giant packs of rhinoceros fight each other to the death in some bloody war for territory. You know, they kind of cohabitate. They find their own fucking space. They do their own thing. You're not in my shit. I'm not in your shit. And if I am, I'm going to shit all over you because that's what rhinos do. But like, I just, there's too many things to say about it and how wrong we as a society are and how much we still have to learn. And I feel like, sure, the millennial generation, and I mean people after us, not, I don't consider us to still be millennials. I think we still are kind of technically a part of that Zennial club, even though they aren't going to count us. But the millennial generation and their lack of tolerance for intolerance is changing the game.
Yeah.
So I hate the toxic fandom shit. Honestly, it's like this. I feel that toxic fandom puts everything good about nerddom at risk, because at what point do companies and all these things go, oh, we can't make you happy? Fuck off. You get no more. The end. We're done. You know, oh, well, you're not happy with your latest Marvel movie? Well, Marvel Studios is closing forever. We're not going to make another one. Enjoy what you had. You know?
Okay, look. People are allowed to dislike things. I don't want to.
Sure.
I don't want us to sound like we are, and I don't want to confuse anybody to say that you have to like certain things because this is in it. No, you can dislike something. You can voice your opinion because that's what we do here. That's what we do on our podcast. We can voice, hey, we like this, we don't like this. The difference is, it goes into that toxicity of going online and being an asshole. There's one thing saying, I didn't like it. You can say, I didn't like it. Or you could go on there and be an asshole to other people who still haven't played it or who do like it. And there's even an issue that a voice actress in the game had to come out and clear something up because there was accusations of possible abuse on set, like weirdness, and she's like, no. This whole situation is getting out of hand. You know, it's getting really hard to want to try to enjoy things. It truly, well, knowing full well. Okay, so this happened with FF7 Remake when I played through that. You know, I'm so glad I didn't get spoiled on that, because even though it's a game that you've already played, it's not the same 100%. They made changes. They made changes to the story a little bit. And I was like, ooh, this is interesting. And then the people who didn't like that trashed the game.
Of course they
trash it. Let me ask you a question, because here's the thing. If you didn't like something, if you didn't like a story, if you didn't like The Last of Us story, does that make the game a 0? Have you ever played a 0?
Yeah. It's called Vampire Rain. It was awful.
You know what game? You know what 0 I've played?
What?
Resident Evil 0.
Oh,
Perfect Dark 0. Okay. I played Disaster Report on the PS2, and it was horrendous. Absolutely awful. But I wouldn't rate it a 0.
Fair enough.
You know, the thing is, I feel like the game is being unjustified in its 0 rating. At the very minimum, this game is a 4 to 5 for the gameplay alone. It's still a good game to play. If you don't like where they take it, all right, man. You know, you have the, like, they ruined it. Did they? Like, okay, then I guess you can just play the first one over again. And this game
we
never
should
happened.
start calling people like that story bros.
Story bros?
Yeah, they're story bros, because they're like, oh man, the game's fucking stupid because it's a bad story, man. That's obviously the only reason to a game. But I don't look at the fact that the graphics are incredible. It doesn't look like an Atari 2600. I can see some of the most mind-boggling action and stuff through a video game that you've ever experienced, just because of the era that we're in. Appreciate what you have. Damn.
Going back, let's rewind the clock, because this is a podcast that you and I did. When we did our review for Star Wars The Last Jedi, we ranked it pretty high. All four of us were really high on it. Two of us have changed.
I still am.
Two of us have changed our opinions on that, and they're not here to defend themselves on that.
Sure.
Would you rank that movie as 0?
You can't rank it as 0. There's too many amazing. And Tyler and I think just recently had this conversation of the battle of like Last Jedi versus Rise of Skywalker, which is better, or whatever. And while I love the Rise of Skywalker, I think it was an amazing experience for what they did with the story. A lot of it is retconning and finding ways to undo the brilliance that was the Last Jedi, which took everything we knew and departed from it.
Okay, so my biggest complaint about that entire trilogy is that there was no plan. They had a stake one, and they're like, here you go, baton, Rian Johnson, you go do your thing. And he goes, I'm going to make my movie. Whether you like or dislike what he did, he made his movie. It didn't coalesce with what they had originally, or like, the thing is, J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy, Lawrence Kasdan should have sat down and wrote a trilogy instead of one movie with we'll let's go over here. Let's try to go over that. Let's try to get there. And we'll let other people tell their story. Try to recreate what they kind of did for the original trilogy, only there's one difference. Who wrote the story in the original trilogy? It was George.
George. Yep.
And then somebody else wrote the screenplay, made his story better. And then you had the directors come in, try to visualize his story, with George there kind of being like, hey, maybe what if we do this over here and all that over there? Listening, almost like, in a way, co-directing. But all this weight isn't on his shoulders to get all these scenes done. George doesn't have to be there for just, these are us getting takes with Yoda with the puppet, you know? He can be like, go chill in his trailer or something.
Take 397, Frank Oz Yoda, go.
Yeah, right. So George's like, I'll be over there, you guys get
Yes, I am.
Exactly. Okay, so The Last Jedi was a huge departure. It basically did nothing that we expected. We went into that movie with certain expectations, and we did not get that. And we all loved it at the time,
and I still do. I'll be a staunch defender of my opinion of that movie. I would gladly watch it at any moment in time.
I think it's a little bit more difficult to rewatch, but I don't think I rate it as low as Tyler and Dick do now. What really bothers me is that going into The Rise of Skywalker, I liked the movie, but I also felt like we had a movie that did the unexpected. So instead of making a movie that went off of that story that movie set up, because now you're in it. If you didn't like The Last Jedi, you're in this story now. We're here. We're going. And what they did was essentially, as you said, they retconned that movie a lot, and they smashed two movies together into one to wrap up the story. And in a way, like all the extra story, this over here, this over here, this over here, all these things that have been more explained maybe like in the novel or in auxiliary works, make that entertainment aspect of that movie better, because it's stuff they don't bother to tell you in the movie because they don't have time. And
there's not enough time to give all the exposition for all the things they're actually doing.
How did
it
Palpatine
becomes an
come
Easter egg fest?
Yes. How did Palpatine come back? We don't really know. We find out through other things. There's things that the movie doesn't tell you, and I do think that is a bit of a detriment to it. Do I think it was bad? No. I enjoyed it tremendously watching it in IMAX. It was fun. I had a lot of fun watching that movie. But here's the thing. We live in an age with this internet. I sound so old when I say it like that. with this internet we have, that you can't, nothing you do pleases anybody. When The Last of Us leaked out and they found A, B, and C, and people were furious. So the game comes out, they see it in context. A lot of people are still furious. Or I've actually seen very few people, but I've seen it. Okay, I was mad, but now I see where they're going. And you even though I knew, you hit me. And let's go do this. Okay, awesome. And I feel like the same thing kind of happened with Game of Thrones. Because we as fans, Nate, are you still there with me? Because live on the show, on your end, it kind of froze a little bit, and you look absolutely hilarious. I hear you now. Live on the show. Come back with me, Nate. You look like you might have had a little bit of an accident. That you, because you look hilarious. I can't wait for you to see this on the other end. I can hear you breathing. Anyway, I'll just keep talking. When we become such a big fan of something, whether that be movies, television, video games, books, we as a fan now have a certain expectation of what the continued story should be. I just lost Nate. Now I'm in two windows. I'm over here. I'll stay over here. No, we have a certain expectation. I gotta try and get Nate back into this. We had an internet problemo. No, we end up having a certain expectation of what we expect the story should be, and when the story isn't that, or maybe it isn't as good, suddenly it's worse in our minds because we've already written the story for it. Hi, Nate. Welcome back to the show.
So sorry. My God, I don't know what just happened. My internet just shit itself.
It's all right.
Just like,
Look,
I'm just going to give up at 11:20 in the morning, you fucks.
All right, so here's the thing, guys. Let's be real. We do the show over the internet. Is it going to run perfectly all the time? Absolutely not.
Is it going to be perfect? No.
Absolutely not. I used to really stress about this back in the early days of doing this podcast. I wanted it to sound perfect, be perfect. We used to hide it. We used to do everything that we could to act like it's not happening. But guess what? It happens. Roll with the punches. Go with it. I even made some fun. You looked freaking hilarious. You looked like you were either deadpan stoned or stroked out. It was just like...
both.
You just like... It was hilarious. No, what I was saying to the audience though is that, in regards to like Game of Thrones, Star Wars, maybe The Last of Us fits into this as well. When we have something that we become such a fan of, and we theorize about what the story is going to do, where it's going to go, how's this going to do with this, what's it going over here, it gets to a point where we've already written the story ourselves. And when that story doesn't do what we made it do in our own head, or maybe it doesn't present it in the way that we thought it should be, suddenly it is now, it's lesser. It happens, and it's been happening a lot lately with a lot of entertainment works, and I don't know.
Because a lot of people are full of themselves, Brando. Let's be real. Do I think I could make a very successful movie? No. Do I think I could probably write a solid story that could maybe be adapted into something? Sure. Okay. But does that make me a guy who is a filmmaker who can, knowing what the process takes, tell other filmmakers who make millions of dollars doing their job how to do their job better? It just, it's like, that would be like, let me just say this. Okay, sure, I'm sure if I fucking sit in a spaceship long enough, I will figure out how to fly it to the moon. However, I'm not telling the motherfuckers at NASA or SpaceX how to fly their goddamn spaceships. They're the rocket scientists. Yeah. They're the ones that do this. So I have an opinion. Sure, I can say it till the fucking cows come home. Do I need to take my opinion, shove it down everybody's throat, and try to validate that opinion? No. And that's what's been happening, man. Everybody thinks they have to validate their negativity and their opinions. They have to validate, like, no, you don't get it, bro. Like, and listen, I have been guilty of this in at least one instance. And it ties into something I was going to bring up anyways, because I was scrolling on Disney Plus last night, when I almost ran through my fucking kitchen window and died. Because what's new to Disney Plus? Fantastic Four.
Yep. I saw
What?
it.
So I was just like, wait, what? What? Oh, well, they did buy it. I mean, yeah, but they put it on there? Like, they chose to put it on there? Like, really? You know, but then, like, you think about it, man. They were trying to do their movie. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff you don't know, especially listening to the Josh Trank stuff when he's been doing interviews recently, and you find out they pretty much, you know, put a fucking muzzle on him and told him you can't do anything you want to. We're gonna make the movie we tell you to make, not the other way. And you know, I have done that. I have tried to explain like, oh no, it's the worst movie in the fucking world or whatever. But really, they try to do some innovative stuff. They cast Michael B. Jordan, who is a great actor, in a role that, as of right now, only leads to you getting a better role. If you've played Johnny Storm in any capacity, you've gone on to be very successful.
Exactly.
So you can't really, I mean, you can be mad at it, but you can't be that mad at it. And I'm sure in the future, I'll get pissed at something somebody will do. And I'll throw down. But I'm not going to try to make everybody feel what I feel about something by being an asshole about it.
Well, and see, that right there is growth, because I've done the same thing. I voice my opinion when I don't like something, just like everybody else does. Don't be a dick. Don't be a dick. I've gone out of my way to try and defend Batman v Superman, and even the Justice League. You know, I thought it was
nice
a pretty
callback.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent movie. You know, just because it's not 9-10 level doesn't mean that, you know, like every movie can't reach that. It can't. You know, I still haven't watched it. Now that it's on Disney Plus, I might. Fantastic Four, was it a 0?
No, I mean, it can't be a 0, but it can be looked at as an incomplete movie.
Sure. Would you give it a 4?
Not even. The only 4 it gets is in its name.
I was going to say, it may not be a Fantastic Four, but it might be a 4. You know, maybe a 4 as in, like, you know what, they tried to do a movie. I see here, here's the thing, guys. We can try to look at what is done here and what is done right. There's a lot of things maybe that they do wrong. Maybe they get this wrong. They get that story wrong or whatever. You know, Game of Thrones Season 8, was it rushed? Absolutely. Was that detrimental? Yes, absolutely. You know, did the story go the way that I thought it should have gone? Yeah, kind of, mostly. You know, do I wish they would have had a little bit more time? Yes, because I think only more time would have made it better. But I really liked it. I'm not gonna try to convince everybody why you should like it, because I liked it. You know, in fact, that is another thing. That's another thing. That is the second time now that on this same podcast, you can go back and reference when we did the Last Jedi review on this show, we all loved it. Opinions have changed as time went on. When we did the game of King Chair, we were pretty positive throughout the entire thing. And now some opinions have changed. And I'm wondering if in some ways the opinion of the internet and pointing out these faults has kind of swayed that, because there is faults. There's a lot of news coming out right now about Last Jedi and about how the problems behind that, and how people in the company didn't like where Ryan was going with it and how they changed it. Whatever, you know, there's been reports now that George Lucas and Favreau don't like that movie and hated what he did with it. You know, and now at Lucasfilm they are trying to redirect. You know, Favreau's in charge of The Mandalorian, and he's looking like he's going to get more responsibility. Maybe, we don't know. There's talk of them bringing George back into it to work on future projects to just try and get the level ground. You know, because they have made a lot of the fan base angry, and they don't want that. They want people to cheer for Star Wars, not cause drama with it. You know, but that's the thing. When you get something as big as Star Wars, when you get when something gets put up here, when it was here or here, there's more opinions about what that should be, whether that's Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Justice League. Like for a lot of people, that was a big deal with the DC movies. Are they bad movies? Absolutely not. They're not bad movies. Maybe they just didn't live up to what they think that should be. Number one, because this is Justice League. Number two, because of the precedent that's already been set by the other side in their movies. When you go back and you watch some of those Marvel movies, they're pretty freaking good. But in a vacuum,
they can seem bad. And actually, when you see the whole Infinity Saga as a 23-film story, imagine. Okay, it's like this. Okay, here's the best way to quantify exactly what you're saying. If you pick up the Infinity Saga book and you start at chapter 1 and you finish at chapter 23, pretty fucking awesome book. Lots of comeuppance, lots of great long thread storytelling that takes time to build on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you to walk up to the same book, grab chapter 11, which is Thor the Dark World or whatever, and just read that book and then judge the whole thing.
Yeah.
You can't. You actually cannot. It might not be the best story in the entire MCU, but it plays a pivotal role later on, and then that's the thing. You have to the weight of decisions, and that's what I think Marvel has done so well. I know DC is kind of backpedaling into where maybe they'll figure their shit out. Maybe we'll course correct and we'll get a Snyderverse and actually maybe see Cavill as Superman a couple more times. We'll maybe get a couple more Ben Affleck appearances, possibly. Maybe not. I don't know.
It gets,
I want to
before you go on. I have one thing to say about that.
Sure.
DC in itself is kind of confusing with how many universes they have. They have that multiverse,
Mm-hmm.
But you already have it laid bare in the comics. It exists.
Well, and they've also laid it bare in the TV verse.
Yes.
Where everything has tied in now.
Yeah.
89, Batman,
Yes.
66, Batman.
Yes.
I mean, it's all there.
There. Absolutely. So why can't there be a Snyderverse version of DC characters where you have Cavill, Affleck, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, then you have Shazam. You can put all these characters in there, and guess what? You have the Batman movie that's coming out. That's a different Batman, different verse. And people will get confused, normal people. But if you're in it, you're like, we have a Snyderverse, we have this one over here, and why not? More can be more. It could be better. Maybe it was bad. Maybe it will be awful. But
or maybe there's a way you MacGuffin it in, and at some point you get an epic moment of Ben Affleck looking at Robert Pattinson, Batman to Batman, and you get a holy shit moment.
Yeah.
Where you never thought you could see that happening.
Absolutely.
Those are the kind of things. I mean, I think, listen, and I don't particularly remember. Were you there when we watched the Avengers, or had you already left the band by the time the Avengers came out? My timeline's a little funky.
I left the band in September 11. September.
Okay, so it was right before 12 was when May of 12. So, I quantify this here. It's like this. That movie giving us Thanos, just the taste of Thanos, sets everything forward. It was a big, I don't think I'm going to actually see this moment. So when it shows up on screen, holy fuck, I'm actually seeing it. That's what you could get with two Batmans or two Supermans or, whatever you want to do. To just double back on toxic fandom and stuff, I also think that's why we have lost some good things in the nerd culture universe. And the most specific thing I'm going to talk about, and it's very topical with today, is The Walking Dead. Now, Brando, interestingly enough, you and I were week to week. Every time there was an issue released, we were talking about it on this show.
Mm-hmm.
You left. I fell off for a time. I tried to play catch up. I did my best to fill all those gaps in and whatnot. Now, I will say, did you finish the series?
No.
Okay, so I'm not going to – I know
what happens. That's why I haven't finished it because I just haven't read it yet. Same story same story as the books with the TV show stuff. I saw what happens. I'm like, oh, cool. And I just have never got on board with actually going through and actually finishing reading. I need to because I want to, especially Now, with what this news came out with yesterday or day before, one of those, but we got big news.
Well, yeah, and to lead into that, so a couple days ago, before we got this news, Robert Kirkman came out in an interview. Did you see this at all?
Yeah.
He was talking about his remorsefulness and the decisions he made leading into the Walking Dead ending.
Yeah.
He said he always had a plan. He was always lying to people. He knew what he kind of wanted to do. Maybe 193 was like not the exact number he thought it would end on, but when logically he got to the point in the story, he's like, well, I'm here. Let's wrap it up. There's no need to fucking pull this out longer. But he was lying to solicitations. You know, they made fake covers for issues that never happened.
Yep.
I mean, it's clever. It's fucking super clever, you know, but it also threw the comic world into a bit of a tizzy because you had this amazing series, the best-selling series at the time. And its peak, it just poof, it's gone. 72 pages in the finale, and that's all she wrote, folks. And Kirkman has talked about he's just real remorseful. He didn't want it to be that way, but he wanted to make sure the element of not knowing it was the end hit everybody equally, right? Yeah. And that's awesome. And I thought, well, yeah, but I feel like, and I've said this on other podcasts before, Kirkman isn't done writing for that universe. He has plans. I always felt there was plans, you know, in the story, you know, there's huge time gaps that are just left wide open. I don't know how deep into the story you get, but there's a point where Negan just dips away. He just dips away.
Like
you have no idea what's going on.
175 or 174 was his last appearance, and he just walks off into the sunset. He literally walks into the sunset because that was one of my favorite issues because they kind of did that in the show a little bit differently, but they still kind of had that confrontation between Maggie and Negan where she's there and she can do it. She can kill him. She can get her revenge, right? And
Glenn, yeah.
And but the man that she went there to kill is no longer there. He's not. He's dead. He died a long time ago. And it's even to the point where he's begging for it. I loved it. It was amazing. There's even that moment where he found the bat and the barbed wire and he made another Lucille. And then as he leaves, he throws it in the campfire that he left and walks off into the sunset. No, it was beautiful. Beautiful ending for that character. However,
sometimes the end is just the beginning, Brando.
I know.
We've been teasing it for quite a few minutes here, but the announcement came through. I was driving. I almost wrecked my car, by the way, because you just sent me a picture, and it was the cover for issue 1 of Negan Lives, dropping in I would say it's probably going to technically come out in August. July, usually a July marked comics are released in early August. So yeah, we're getting a new story, or at least a continuation on the story. My hope is we do see moments that we haven't seen in Negan's life and maybe some backstory, as well as what happened after he walked into the sunset and had his own little place.
We don't know how long this is going to go for. It's indicated that it could just be a one-off, kind of like how that one-off book we had for his backstory. So like so for his story we would have like the Walking Dead version or the part of his story, we'd have the backstory collection, and then we would have like his epilogue essentially, which I'm fine with. If it's just one 28-page story of his epilogue, that's cool. I would love to have a longer standalone series, but I also don't know if Kirkman wants to just keep it going. Another thing that he's doing, he's sending these to the comic book stores without any sort of the stores having to pay for any sort of shipping or like the other commission stuff that they have to do to get the books. They can just sell the books and make their money.
Wow.
So he's doing that to help out because of all the COVID and pandemic and how the in-store shopping has dropped down. I also just saw another headline as we were discussing that unfortunate topic that we were discussing earlier, with all the kind of negativity and just being dicks and shit. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who plays Negan on the show, he is supporting his local comic book store with autographed issues of Negan Lives. So here it is. The newly announced one-shot comic from Kirkman and artist Charlie Adlard will be sold exclusively at comic book stores starting July 1st.
Oh, shit.
With 100% of sales going to benefit physical retailers who made the series a success to begin with, Kirkman said. in a statement. With those retailers, Mega Brain Comics and Arcade in Rhinebeck, New York, which counts as Morgan and wife Hillary Burton Morgan and their son Gus as regular customers. So on Thursday, Burton tweeted out a request for to her for more than 178,000 followers, asking them to support small shops by purchasing an issue of Negan Lives #1 on July 1st, her birthday. And in response, Morgan tweeted out an offer to sign the first 100 issues sold by the shop, bumping the store owner Gene Michaels' orders from 80 to nearly 200 copies. So he came in and said, I'll sign the first 100 sold, and a bunch of people said, I want books. And so he's definitely, trying to help out his local shops. That's awesome. Jeffrey D. Morgan is one of the good guys. From everything that we have seen, everything that he has said, everything that we can tell from him, he is literally the antithesis of the character that he played in the show. He is such a good dude. You have these guys in Hollywood and that in the actors world, with the guys like Tom Hanks, guys like Keanu Reeves, that are just good dudes, and Jeffrey's one of them.
Some would even say excellent dudes.
Yeah, hey, I get it, but he is just one of those guys. He is on the forefront of a lot of issues, using his star power to get the word out and to help, and those are the guys that I admire the most in the entertainment field, are the guys that could take the time out of their day to do good. And for him to do that, for him to not to charge anything, be like, hey, autographs, Negan Lives, Jeffrey D. Morgan, hell yeah. If I lived in that area, I'd be there to buy a book,
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah. It's cool that it's a one shot. I am a little bit bummed that we aren't getting a full blown series. However, I like what you said about how we'll get the beginning with Here Comes Negan, then you get Negan Lives, which could, who knows, this one shot is testing the waters possibly. It could spawn off to a different, bigger story.
Yeah.
I feel like at any point Kirkman could pick The Walking Dead back up. There are stories within that universe that could be told, and maybe some point he will do that in little special runs here and there, just to keep it alive. But he has a very special, listen, it's very, as I kick the fucking thing again, it's very rare for a story to have such beautiful finality. And for them to, and I'm to stay spoiler free here, for them to wrap everything how they did, to tell the story they told, to do the beats and the motions that they went through, while never giving away their end game, kudos to them. And I feel like The Walking Dead is kind of its own moment in time now. It is going to be like a legacy series in 50 years. People are talking about like the iconicness of The Walking Dead and why didn't you read it, or whatever.
Sure. Well, and maybe we'll get more books. Maybe we won't. And who's to say that he is going to be the guy to write those books? He has created a universe where we have 3 television shows now. The main series, Fear the Walking Dead, and now I can't remember what the name of the other one. But the one that has
something world, right?
Yes, something like. I saw the trailer for it and was like, oh, okay, so it's set 10 years after, and it follows kids, and it's a bit different. We have that. He's created a world where other people could come in and tell some pretty cool stories, and he could just be the guy up here going, yeah, that's cool, or yeah, maybe. Basically George Lucas' situation, where he could just kind of be like the overlord producer. But no, man, it just like I'm excited for what's to come with this new book. I actually boycotted the Walking Dead show. I might have said it here on the show, but prior, when they were advertising that Andy Lincoln was leaving the show, I was angry, very angry. Because I would rather be surprised by that, and let that story thread go. But instead, they use it as an advertising bonus because the ratings were slipping. And weirdly enough, you know where the ratings started going down at and people gave up on the show?
When they departed from the comics.
No. Negan
Oh.
killing Glenn. They audience decided that was too graphic and too dark, and they checked out. The ratings show that. Up until that point, the ratings were really strong, and then it wasn't so much the departure from the comics. It was that people didn't want that for the television audience. Maybe if this show had been picked up by HBO and was already a little bit more graphic to begin with, maybe it would have been okay. Maybe it would have matched up with the comics as being like the big spurring moment of getting the show into a new renaissance.
Well, and you
period.
think, though, too, the Negan thing with Glenn is, while it's graphic and brutal, it's not maybe some of the most brutal stuff that you witness in that book. I mean, think about Michonne taking a drill to the governor's dick.
And we don't get to see that. We don't see that at all in the series. It's different.
At all.
They depart.
Exactly.
And he just gets like a piece of shard glass to the eye, and that's it. And that's how he gets the eye patch. So it's completely different. What I will say is I was wrong to boycott the show because we finally sat down once that series or that season came to Netflix. This is season 9, and we sat down and watched it. When I was out on, it was I believe it was either when we had the baby and I had a week off, or it was over Christmas shutdown, or one of those, or maybe it was over
Sure.
Thanksgiving. We sat down and we watched the whole series because it's on Netflix, and we just watched through it. And it was the best season that they've had in years. Like, as far as creativity, as far as, like, the time jump was a bit weird and a big departure from which I liked about it, because it was like, okay, they're doing stuff I know what's going to happen. Andy decided to leave. He decided to leave. I cannot fault him for his decision to leave. I can't, because he's a dude. He made his own decision. They had to make a story around that, and they did. And I thought it was very well done. That his last episode of this show is one of my favorites they've ever done. With his interactions with Shane. His interaction, they brought Shane back. They brought John Bernthal back for that episode.
Interesting.
And it was because they actually kind of ripped off the Last of Us in that episode, which is funny. If you played The Last of Us, you know what I'm talking about. You haven't got there yet, Nate.
Sorry.
But Rick is bleeding out, and he's being chased by walkers, and he's on a horse, and he keeps fading in and out of consciousnness. And all of a sudden, he's back in the cop car with Shane.
Whoa.
Great
that's cool.
shit. Great shit. Oh my God. That was such
I think I checked out after they killed Coral.
Coral. That was the mid-season of the year before.
8, yeah.
Yeah, 8, because then they went on to the last part of it, and that's when they defeated Negan. Which, that was a good episode too. But I would have loved. I actually liked the story of killing Carl for that story. I don't like it in retrospect with Rick leaving, because if you lose Carl, Rick's got to be there, but Rick's not gone because they're doing something different with him. It's kind of weird, but just stay with me, Jimbo, because that episode with where Rick is like going a little loopy. The Shane interaction is great, and the last interaction he has is with Herschel, and it's one of the last things that he filmed before he died in real life.
Yeah.
The actor. And they were back on the farm, and they were on the upper level of the barn.
That's
It's
awesome.
Beautiful scene. Beautiful scene.
Damn. Well, now I'm gonna have
Scott
to go
Wilson.
and go catch up on that too.
So I will say, and then the stuff they did with Negan, with that, it's amazing stuff that they did with Negan, because and some stuff is what you remember, and some stuff isn't, because Carl's not around for him to bomb with. So who does he bomb with?
Judith?
Yeah. She's doing her homework, and he's like hanging out in the cell in the basement talking to her, and he's like, and telling her stories, You know, talking about how like he brought a dog home and his parents wouldn't let him keep the dog, you know. And then Judith is nice to him, and Michonne's like, "You're talking to Negan?" He goes, "He listens to me."
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay. I'll go check it out. Damn it. No more.
There's one more scene.
Okie dokie.
Okay, one more scene.
Okay.
And then I'll be done. I'm done selling because we're gonna wrap up the podcast.
Oh, it's okay. I'm just excited.
It's a long time since you've done a straight JIC on a normal basis.
Oh, I know. It's hardcore
It's
parkour.
catching up a little bit. Negan gets out of the cell. Where does he go? He doesn't go to the same place he goes in the book.
Does he go to the hilltop?
No. Sanctuary.
Okay.
And it's completely broken down, deserted, because in the series, before the 6-year time jump, the Saviors end up getting finished off because they decided to fuck with the wrong people. Essentially, Carol. Essentially, yeah.
Look at the flowers, saviors.
Pretty much. Like they're kind of being a thorn in the side, and they end up going away. But yeah, Negan shows up and he's walking around, looking around. He picks up a couch, sits down. This was his lair, man. This was his kingdom. And then there's some walkers banging around. He's like, he picks up a pipe, opens up the door to let him in, and then he recognizes the walker. It's one of the Saviors. He goes, "Whoa, hey, long time no see, Red." Whatever he called him, And then he's like, "Whoa," and then he ends up like putting him down, and Negan goes back home to the cell.
Interesting.
Well, he gets caught by Judith, but like, yeah, because I think Negan's like riding a bike, and then Judith shoots the bike, and then he wrecks, and she takes him back, and he's just like, "Okay, I'll walk."
Cool.
They do some cool stuff with him, and I haven't watched season 10, but I know what happens, and there's a really cool fucking scene that I'll talk to you about after when we're off air, because I haven't aired the season finale yet. Because it got delayed.
They're waiting. Yeah, COVID.
But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this show. It's been good to sit here and talk to you. We're excited about the one shot of Negan Lives. We'll be reading that because by the time that comes out, unfortunately, Tyler won't be back. We have when I came back onto the show, I guess technically as a guest on 299, but in 300 we wrapped up the Kraven's Last Hunt. We are going to be doing some more books. Each and every episode, we're going to be looking at an issue or two of a book. That we were talking about, all encompassing, everything nerd, but we're going to keep true to the comics name. We're going to keep the comic club alive each and every single episode here on the podcast. And I'm not sure what book we're going to talk about next. There's possibly that we'll look at the Kraven's sequel, the Kraven's Last Hunt sequel.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if we talked about this officially on 300 before we get out of here, but we plan on trying to keep the book-based shows to the three of us if we can.
Yes. I definitely want to do that because that's going to be. I think that's more fun.
I absolutely agree. I love nerding out with you guys about the books. You know what I think would be amazing because he's never read them? Take Tyler through The Walking Dead.
That would be neat. That would be neat to do some of those. I also feel, we started the show off by talking about unfinished business, and we need to go back and finish The Watchmen.
Yes. Can we just redo Watchmen and our current team? I think
Yes.
that would probably be the way to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we'll kill it. It'll be great. I can't wait.
Watchmen Redux.
Watchmen on HBO now.
Which is free. They made it free for this weekend. So by the time you hear this, it's not free anymore. But but yeah, HBO made it free for the weekend because of for Juneteenth and what the show opens with. In Tulsa,
very
Oklahoma.
nice.
So it's very topical what's going on right now this weekend in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Awesome. Well, Brando, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, get on out of here. As always, you guys can check out the Journey into Comics podcast at journeyintocomics.com. Get us on Apple Music, Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, CastBox, TuneIn, and many others. Just search Journey into Comics Network. Get our amazing feed of a community of friends making awesome content for you folks. As always, check out Brandon's other podcast, the Game Addicts Podcast, on their feed, where you can get them on all the same platforms as well as iHeartRadio. Just search Game Addicts Podcast. Get them on GameAddictsPodcast.com. Check us out on the OGs every other Wednesday. Means that next week we'll be on the air. No, not next week. The week after this. No, next week. This week is
next week.
And next week.
Not next week. This week. Next week. Next week.
Actually next week. Oh shit! But I think that's gonna do it. Brando, you got anything else you want to add before we rock out?
That's absolutely it from us this week. Of course, we rocked it with some little bit of some controversial discussion, but discussion I feel like that needs to be had in the nerd community, because we can be critical, but we also need to be we don't be dicks. Let's not be dicks. Let's let people enjoy the things that they're going to enjoy, and let's not criticize works for stupid shit. Let's move on into the 21st century or whatever century we're on, 21st century, to let's leave that shit behind us, and let's just try and be positive. I'm gonna try to do the same thing on this show. If there's something I don't like, I'm gonna try and voice it in the right way, to not really just say it's trash, because there's not much in this universe that's entertainment based, comic books, video games, TV shows, movies, that is trash. There's got to be positivity in there for us to find.
Sure, and it helps us to leave the world a better place if we look at the good in things instead of trying to pick apart the evil. I think or the bad per se.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of JIC. Thank you so much again for joining me, Brando.
Absolutely.
As always, this has been Journey into Comics 301. Negan Lives. I'm Nate.
I'm Brando.
We'll see you guys later. As always, pop your caps back and fill your brains with shit. Later, guys.